Grab your rune stones, gamers, because today we're giving Ravenfeast a shot. Appropriately enough, it's named Ravenfeast because today I think I'm going to be eating a little bit of crow myself. Having read through the rules in a little more detail, I'm going to have to say that this rule set is a little more sophisticated than I gave it credit for in a recent review video, as you will see moving forward. Now, before we get into the game itself, this is going to be a 300-point battle, and we've got two different sets of forces. Now, I don't have any Vikings, so I'm substituting out some fantasy figures, and I figured that dwarves would be a suitable replacement. So over here we have the dwarves, and we've got a Jarl, we've got two Huskarls, and these equate to a leader and two elite infantry. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 basic infantry. These would be classed as herdmen in the Ravenfeast nomenclature, and then we've got two archers. The dwarves I don't have any dwarf archer figures, so they've recruited a couple of roly-poly halflings to fill that wargaming ecological niche. On the other side, we've got some orcs that are filling in, and we have a Jarl or a leader here. That's the guy with the little Caesar helm. We have a berserker. This ogre will be our berserker. We've got 12. What would those guys be? Those are classed as Bondi. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, so herdmen are armed with axes. Bondi are the spearmen. And then we also have 6 thralls. These lizard men, you've seen them before. They're going to be the slaves of the orcish Vikings, who are on the attack. So with that out of the way, I'm going to reset the camera so you can see the entire table. And like I said, it's just going to be a 300-point fight to the death to take these rules for a test spin and show you how they work. So here's our terrain. We've got a couple of impassable line of sight blocking mountains. We've got a nice little valley running through. Everything is difficult terrain with the following exceptions. Any rocks are impassable. Nothing blocks line of sight except for the mountains and the forest down here. Everything else is difficult terrain. These guys do not block line of sight, but these two little swamps block all movement. All difficult terrain increases your, it costs 2 inches to move 1 inch. And then, of course, we have a couple of cliffs right here, which are also impassable terrain. I've started the orcs up there, the dwarves down here, and generally speaking, the orcs want to get to the Blackstone so they can commit, I don't know, they can sacrifice a chicken or something. That's their basic goal here. So the way this works is you start by rolling initiative. I'm going to use orange dice. Now, as you see, my dwarfy boys have orange shields. They're painted in electric blue and orange. The greenskins up there are going to use the green die. Initiative, hoping to roll low. Roll a d6, subtract the number of heroes and leaders that you've got. Both side only has 1 leader, so our dwarves are going to get the initiative, and they get to decide whether they go first or the other guys go first for movement. And in this case, the dwarves want to see how the orcs are going to go about assaulting this side of the board, so they're going to say, hey, orcs, you go first. The second phase is a rally phase, which doesn't apply because we don't have anybody hurt just yet. So they move, then these guys move. The orcs have now moved. The orc leader has asked his thralls to kind of sweep around on a flanking maneuver. They move 8 inches. Everybody else moves 6. He's got the bulk of his forces, 8 spearmen here, 4 there. The leader's there, and he's got his berserker right there backing him up. One thing to point out, the rules call for a minimum of 3 by 3 foot table. I'm using a 32-inch by 32-inch drop cloth, so I've started my guys all the way back, kind of buy a little bit more time for maneuvering. With that said, it's up to the dwarves to go ahead and maneuver, and they're going to go ahead and send the archers up this way, and we'll send all 4 of our Bondi up this way, and we'll bring these 2 elite melee guys. You know, they're going to kind of stick together a little bit more. It might take a little bit longer to get to where they're going, but that's fine. I did something wrong here. Wait a minute. Yeah, this guy. So the guys with the shields are regular infantry, and the guys with the axes are the more elite style infantry. So that's the end of movement. Then we have missile fire, which we don't have any of that. Then you do melee, and all missile fire, all melee are done simultaneously, and then you have the morale phase, which we don't have because nothing really much has happened. We're going to move on to turn number 2, and we re-roll for initiative. It's a tie, so we re-roll, and it's going to be the dwarfy boys going first again. But this time, the dwarves are going to once again ask the orcs to go first. And with that movement done, you can see, flanks are moving up. These guys moved up. The only real difference is that this berserker has decided he's going to move ahead, and these 4 warriors are going to let him do that. Good luck, buddy. Brings us back to the orcs, and the orcs are going to now. Archers, if they've moved half their distance, they can only move half their distance if they want to shoot that turn. So we're going to do that. We're going to bring one up here, and we're going to bring the other one. Well, he's only got 3 inches of movement, so we're going to bring him a little bit short, and we'll see what our line of sight looks like in a minute. Over here, we're going to bring our heroes around this side, and we'll go ahead and bring our bulk troops. We're going to go ahead and bring them up to here, and just kind of move up to there and call it good for this turn. So let's go ahead and check. The archers here have a range of 18 inches, and if we drop this bad boy down, we can see that there's our 18 inches, and they do have line of sight to these 2 guys. Each of those archers has 1 shot. You have to roll less than your missile skill, and archers have a skill of 2. So they're going to each fire 1 shot, 1 and 2, and we'll start with the guy on the outside. On a 1, we hit, and then that guy, because he took a hit, he gets to make an armor save. As a thrall, he only saves on a 1. Okay, so 2. So he didn't save. So here's where the game gets its first little added wrinkle. I'm going to use this as my wound marker. So he's wounded. We don't pull him off just yet. I bring this up because later it's going to matter. It actually doesn't matter right now because we do our missile, there's no melee, and then we get to the end of turn. This is your morale phase. It's also where you start pulling your wounded guys off the table. So he does come off. But because he can finish out his turn, even though he's wounded, there's a chance at least that he could get off a missile shot of his own. Now, they have a range of 8, so it didn't happen now, but that may become important later on. So we are now officially done with our with the turn, and we move on to the next initiative phase. And in this case, it's the orcs get to go first, and the orcs are going to tell the dwarves, we want you to move first this time. The dwarves say, okay, we're going to bring these guys up to here. We're going to move our archers to here. And we're going to form a shield wall. Now, once you form that shield wall, you stop moving. So these guys are going to move the 5 inches to here. It's not quite 5 inches, but we're gonna lock them down, and we're gonna bring the leader up. Important question: is the leader able to join the shield wall? Let's find out. The rules state 3 or more Vikings are necessary. These are all Vikings. Everybody on the table is a Viking. So I'm going to assume that what they're talking about is 3 or more figures can form a shield wall, regardless of whether they're thralls or not. So that's interesting. I'm glad we resolved that right now, because that will change how the orcs move. And in this case, these orcs are going to move up to here, and they're going to form a shield wall. So we'll have 5 in the front rank, and we'll have 5 in the rear rank, and we're actually going to put our leader in the front rank as well. So there's Caesar Orc ready to roll, and then we'll move. Let's move these 3 up to here, and they are not in a shield. Well, if they form a shield wall, so that's the difficulty. If they form a shield wall, it's a little tight. They're not going to be able to get through here. So we're going to actually leave them back here and leave them loose. We're going to bring these 6 up to here. Actually, let's bring them around here. We're gonna bring our Berserker, and they are still in loose order. And then we have one more set of thralls over here, but we're going to charge forward the 8 inches. Oh, all right, now we're ready for these guys over here. And they have an 8-inch move. So we're going to do it. We're going to bring them up and form a nice little shield wall right here. No, we really can't. So they're just going to delay. With 8 inches, I guess they can probably go. Let's bring them right here. They're in the broken terrain, and I'm going to rule that broken terrain, if it cuts your movement in half, that you can't form a shield wall in broken terrain. That ends movement. As you can see, we still don't have any melee, but we do have, we got to get the order right. First, we're going to do missiles. So we're going to take a couple of shots over here at these thralls. We'll roll our bones, and you need a 2 or less. Both of those are misses, so those halfling archers do no good. Then we do melee, but which we don't have any. We don't have any morale, so we'll run to the next turn, and we roll for initiative. The GC Minis is a 6 versus a 1, so greenskins go first, and they're going to go ahead and move. The Berserker's going to take on this guy, and I'm going to separate these so that we see that they're not, with a little bit of help from his friend, and we're going to put 2 thralls. Actually, we're going to go with 3 thralls on this dwarf, and a Berserker, a one-on-one Berserker there. These guys are going to move to here. 6 inches, 6 inches, and then we got our 6s, and we're just going to come right up into melee here with the shield wall. And our little gutter runners over here are going to pin these guys in place. So as you can see, initiative played a role here. The orcs, they're swinging around. They're going to have to wait 1 turn to hit these guys in the back, and that's when things are going to get really ugly based on how that combat goes. We don't have any missile fire this turn, but boy howdy do we have a lot of melee. So I want to start with, and it gets a little bit weird because melee is all simultaneous. So let's start easy. Thralls have a melee skill of 1, and the archers have a melee skill of 2. So we'll roll for our attacks first, and the thrall hits, the archer does not, and then we'll roll for this one. And in this case, the archer hits and the thrall does not. So we have to roll over here. So each of these guys, first we'll roll for, this thrall hits, he has to make his defense roll, and he needs to roll a 2 to survive. So a 6 doesn't do it. He picks up 1 wound. And then over here, this thrall has to roll a 1, and he also does not. I guess we've got to slow down a little bit, because if he hit with a 1 and he failed his save with a 6, he gets a free attack. And if that attack is successful, not only is this thrall die, but it's a messy defeat, and that thrall, that forces everyone within 6 inches to make a morale check. I can't remember if we did that, so I'm not going to worry about it this time. Then we got to come over to, let's do this side next. And we're going to, like I said, we're going to slow down a little bit. First, we're going to do the Huskarl hitting on a 4, and he's attacking one of these guys. But well, that's a hit. Normally, he has a melee skill of 4. That becomes a 3 because he is outnumbered. I don't know if that stacks. I don't know if it becomes a 2, but fortunately for us, a 1 is a success either way. So the thrall now has to roll, and on anything but a 1, he takes a blamage. Something tells me we're going to need a few of these, so we'll just pick one at random. Let's pick this guy on the outside as the one he attacked. But now these 3 thralls get to attack him back, and we get 1 hit on him, and he has to roll a save, which is a 4 or better. He fails, which means he takes, he takes 1 wound, but he has 2 wounds, so he can survive to fight another day. On the other side, the Berserker gets to roll twice. He gets 2 attacks, and he hits on 4s, so he hits twice, and Mr. Dwarf only saves 1 of them, so he takes a wound. And then Mr. Dwarf here gets to attack back. He hits on a 4. He does not hit. So now we have to come over here, and we actually have, because you've got 4 guys in the back ranks, those 4 guys are going to attack directly across. So what we have, this amounts to, and all of the armor here is 5, because the shield wall gives you +2 to your armor. So the first combat here, we are going to roll. These are the 2 hits, and they're hitting on 3s. So they both hit, and then they both, so that is a failed save. Oh, wait a minute. I got that backwards. That is a successful save because that's the king fighting. So no effect on this first battle. He is engaged by more than 1 enemy, so he needs to roll as just a herdman, he needs to roll a 2 to hit this guy. He misses. He gets hit twice, 6 and a 1. So he gets hit once and he has to make the save. Oops, sorry about that, buddy. And he saves on a 3, so nothing happens there. So we'll roll for the attack here. Gets 1 hit, which is, oh, Nelly. I'm just all thumbs today. Also saved. Then the dwarf gets to counterattack, and he rolls a 6, which is a miss. And then we have 2 attacks here, which are both misses, versus 1 attack back, and a 3. Oh, you know, because these guys are in shield wall, only a 1 hits, is also a miss. And then we have 2 attacks against a guy with a 5, so that is 1 hit, and anything but a 6, he survives. So 5, thanks to the shield wall, he survives. Oh, that's the king. That's the leader, so he's doing better than that. I want to re-roll his attack. He actually hits on a 3 or better. So he actually does get a hit in on that guy, but that guy needs a 5 or better. So while these shield walls really make things slow. So all of that melee, nothing happened. We go on to the end of phase. Everybody that has taken their last wound, which is this thrall, I'll put him over there in my graveyard, and this thrall and this archer go bye-bye. And both of these guys have 2 wounds, so they don't go anywhere. We move on to the next turn, and we do the same thing that we did before. Initiative, the dwarfs get to go first, so we're going to... I don't know, man. I think we need to help out over here. He's gonna race over to impact him and bog him down. Then these guys are going to attack in the rear. We're going to go ahead and wipe out this guy, and then we'll support the king. And we've got one other guy that can move 8 inches, well, that's 6, 7, 8. So he's going to attack the king too. Actually, we'll go ahead and use that thrall attacking him in the back. So he's going to have 3 hits on him. We'll have to roll those independently. By the way, if your archers are in cover, they get an extra 4+ save anytime they get shot at, in addition to their armor save. We are now on to the melee round, and I think we should start over here where we've got a 2-on-1, and we've got 2 Bondies who miss, fighting an elite guy who hits. And does he save? This guy does not. So we got to throw down another wound on him. Then we have a Berserker who hits on 4s, so that's 1 hit, and an elite that saves on a 4+. So he saves. Then he gets to attack back and misses. Let's go ahead and do the Archer next. The Archer attack, he hits on a 2. We'll call it attacking. Oh, no, he only hits on a 1. He's outnumbered, so his melee skill drops from a 2 to a 1. And then the 2 guys attacking him roll, and that is going to be a single hit. And Mr. Archer has to roll a 1 or a 2 to save, which he does. So that melee is done. Then we move on to the complicated center fight. I think things have bogged down pretty good, so I zoomed us in. We're going to go just from left to right as you look at it. All combats are simultaneous. They get a little bit confusing. We're going to do the boss man's attack first against this warrior. Boss man misses on a 6. After a brief review, your armor goes down by 1 if you're attacked from the rear, and if you're outnumbered, your melee goes down by 1. So this herdman is attacking this leader, and his attack becomes a 2. Is dead. These 2 guys still have 1 wound. And then we have 1 more guy who suffered. We have a dwarf that died, and we have a gruesome kill. Now that's called Mark of the Raven. In a shield wall, the guy who's in the 2nd rank can freely move up when the first guy dies. That also happens in this phase. But now we have to deal with morale for the first time. Everybody on your team within 6 inches. So here's when you make morale tests. If your leader dies, doesn't apply. If you lose half your force, doesn't apply. Or for the gruesome kill, everybody within 6 inches. So that's pretty much all of these orcs have to make that check. We are going to start with the orc leader, because if he passes his morale check, and that's a 5, so anything but a 6. Okay, so our leader's okay. Everybody can now use his morale. So if he had failed that, everybody would have had to use their own morale score. But since he succeeded, everybody uses their own. So we've got this guy here in the back rank, who, so basically anything but a 6, they stick around to fight. We've got, I'm going to roll 1, 2, 3 for the back rank. 1, 2, so he fails. And number 3 passes. And then I'm going to roll 1, 2, 3, 4 for the front rank. 1, 2. So he fails. I'm going to move him back. And then we've got 3, 4. 3 and 4. So 3 also fails. So we got 3 guys who said, I am going to beat feet because this ain't no good. And then we've got 1, 2 guys, 1 and 2, any 6s. So the second guy says, yo, I am outie. Okay, so they move a full move away. And they are marked as cowards. We're going to pull this back to here. We've got 3 guys who have chickened out in this direction, and we've got 1 guy that chickened out in this direction. So that's 4 guys. We're going to spend a turn saying, I've had enough. Even though they were in a pretty solid position. Did I? I don't think I rolled for this guy here. He sticks around, and then I didn't roll for this guy here. He also sticks. Wait a minute. Yeah, he also sticks around. Anything but a 6. And then, fortunately, these guys over here do not need to roll. Go figure, the Berserker doesn't have to worry about his morale. So, that's it for the morale phase. A minute, we're not done. 2 of these guys get attacked. When you flee from melee, now there was 1 guy in the back rank. He was not in contact, so he took off. We're going to just call, we'll put Mr. Backranker over there, and we're going to roll 2 attacks. We're going to make it herdsman, so we're really just looking for 3s. That's 2 hits, so they actually become wounded. Because on a successful free attack, you don't get any armor saves. What does that mean? Well, this also happens in the pull casualties phase of the game. So we're going to pull these 2 casualties off. And then we have 1 more attack to resolve, and that's this skedaddling boy right there. Now, Archer only has an attack of 2, so he does actually flee. If you flee off table, you're out of the game. So now things get a little complicated. We need to count our break point for the orcs. There were 20 figures, and they have now lost 8. For the dwarves, the break point is a lot lower, but they've only lost 1 guy. So, wait, I take it back. The orcs have lost 7. They need to lose 3 more before they're out of the game. The dwarfs have lost 2. They need to lose 3 more before they got to start making another big morale check. So that's the end of the turn. Things are a little bit ugly. We're going to clean this up on the next turn, which begins right now. It's a tie. And the dwarfs get to go first, which is great because it allows them a little bit more leeway to reset themselves. This is where having a, he can move, oh boy. This is where you need to have a GM enter in because the scrum gets complicated. They're already locked into combat, so they're not going to do anything. We've got some dwarves who kind of were in a shield wall. There's still 3 of them here, and in order to move over, I don't think there's any movement that any of these dwarves can do. So we're going to call these 3 still in the shield wall. We're going to bring this orc over here, and we're going to bring this orc over here. So we've got a triple team on the king. Still no missiles, so we go straight to melee. Oh! I almost forgot. How does this guy move? Well, before the movement phase, we roll initiative, and then you have a rally phase. He is now more than 6 inches away from his leader, so he has to rally using his own morale. And a 4 isn't going to cut it. The regular warriors have a morale of 3, so he is removed from the game. Likewise, this guy down here needs to roll a 3, and he does not. He is also removed from the game. So that brings the tally count 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 out of 20. So they're hanging by a thread. 1 more dead boy. And interestingly, in this rule set, the thralls count for the same number of figures lost as the berserkers. It's not about points, it's about figures from the looks of things. Regardless, we are on to our attacks, and we've got a combat over here. And we have a combat over here. The dwarf rolls first, and he misses with a 4. This dwarf rolls, and he misses. This slavey boy down here misses, and Mr. Berserker rolls twice and gets 1 hit. He fails his save, so he takes his 2nd wound. So the Berserker beat the elite. Down on the mean streets, then we've got an easy one down here. Mr. Herdman needs a 3, and he doesn't get it. Mr. Archer needs a 2, and he does get it. He's got an armor. Mr. Bondi has an armor of 3, and he makes his save, so nothing happens. Then we have some complicated stuff. Let's do our king's attack on this orc here. He has his 5 becomes a 4 because he's outnumbered, so he hits. This orc is no longer in the shield wall, but as a Bondi, that 3 is a failure. So he takes a wound. But he does get to attack. He gets to roll his attack, and on a 1 he hits. And Mr. Bossman rolls a 5 and takes the first of his 3 wounds. Leaders are very tough. That's why you want to dogpile them. Then we have our little thrall here who attacks and misses. He needs a 1. And Mr. Bondi here misses with a 3. So then we have a straightforward 2 shield walls. It's going to be 2 attacks. Let's just roll for the attacks first. The dwarf misses and the bondsman misses. We're going to roll for the attacks in this center line. Obviously the white dice. So Mr. Dwarf misses. 2 dwarfs hit. These are Bondi hitting on a 2. So he has to make 2 saves. And he has an armor of 5 because he is still in the shield wall. So he actually pulls it off. Then we have the complicated fight here. We've got a dwarf who's attacking the leader and hits with a 2. He is a herdman who is outnumbered, so he hits on a 2. The leader saves on a 5, and he saves. And then we have a leader attacking with a 5, and he hits. The dwarf makes a save. Then we have a second-rank spearman who hits, and the dwarf makes a save. And then we have a rear attack, which hits, and Mr. Dwarf makes his save. So everything stays static there. All of the combats are done. Move on to removing the dead boys, and we've got a dead boy over here. That's third of the 9, and we've got a dead boy over here. And that is the 10th of 20. So now the orcs have to make a rally check, or a morale test. So let's start over here. This fella needs a 1, and he fails. So he turns yellow. He is a yellow-bellied lizard who runs away. And he gets to run 8 inches, but it's 2 inches across here. So it's going to be 1, 5. We'll call that to there. Then Mr. Berserker, he rolls, and his morale is a 4, so he succeeds. And we'll roll for our leader, who makes his. So everybody here has to roll a 5 or better, and we'll just go around the horn, starting here. He succeeds. Mr. Thrall here succeeds. This orc succeeds. We've got an orc in the back who succeeds, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. So he is going to run 6 inches away. And then we've got one more guy, 1, 2, 3, and I think that's it. So, next turn. Initiative. Green gets to go first. And green says, well, no, green gets to go first, but we're going to do our rallying. He needs to roll, nope, not going to do it. And he needs to roll, nope, not going to do it. Oh, the odds are getting balanced, but I still think the dwarves are in a bad position. Now, the orcs get to decide who's going to be doing the moving first. And because these guys both move 6 inches, and we really like that bonus, he's going to turn and run this way. We're going to slide him over so that we now have our 3 guys in a shield wall. And that's all the movement for Team Evil. This hero is going to chase after the Berserker. Hey, come back here. I'm not done with you. You killed my twin. And we are on to the missile phase, which we don't have any. Hey, turn around and face your opponents there, buddy. And so we're on to the melee phase. We're going to roll our 2 attacks here. And that's a hit for him. So he needs to make a save, and he needs a 2 to do it, which he does. So nothing happens there. Then we've got a king over here who hits on a 5. He's going to attack the thrall, and that's a miss. The thrall hits on a 1. The bondsman hits on a 2. He actually hits on a, 2. He actually hits on a 4, but he had missed either way. So that's a 2, and then he saves on a 5, so he saves. And then we come over here where we've got a couple of guys in a shield wall. 2 hits. The dwarf hits him, and he makes his save. And then we've got 2 attacks right here in the center, and both of those are hits. So they're both going to save, and they both make their saves. And then we've got a little complicated one. Let's do the dwarf first. He's attacking the leader still, and he gets a 5, which is not going to do it. The orc leader goes first, and he misses. And then the orc behind him attacks and hits with a 2. His armor becomes just a straight 3, and he fails that. So that's another wound marker for this guy right here, that dwarf right there. And we're done with the next turn. I don't think we have any more melee. Yeah, that's all she wrote. So we got to pull off some dead boys at the end. He goes goodbye. And that is the 4th of 9, so the dwarves are still standing and still ready to fight. He has 1 wound left. He has 2 wounds left. And we're on to the initiative phase. The orcs get to go first, and the orcs are going to move first to tighten things up. His opponent died, so he will... let's try and take him out. Let's charge here, and we'll tighten up this gap here too as well. Well, wait a minute. Nope, we're going to bring the king over here so that this elite guy has to fight the king one-on-one. And that way we can slowly start whittling down. Now, these guys are not in the shield wall anymore. I'm going to separate them a little bit just to show you what we got here. We've got a one-on-one combat. We've got a 2-on-1 with a berserker running up the tailpipe. But first we're going to start with this combat over here. He hits. He does not. So he has to make a save, which he does. He saves on a 4. Then we're going to do over here, we've got 2 attacks on Mr. Archer Man. I got to tell you, I'm kind of impressed with how well this Archer is holding up. He hits on a 2. The Bondies hit on... no, he hits on a 1 because he's outnumbered. So They hit on on twos, and that's it for that. Boy, I gotta tell you, the points are really good on this game. Now that I've seen it in action, I mean, this is really close. We're coming down to the wire. Let's do this combat next. The 2 white dice are the barbarian, or the berserker, who hits on 4s, so that's 2 hits. And he hits on 3s, which he does not, so he's got to make 2 saves. And he only manages to make, no, he hits on 4. So he makes 1 save, but that's not enough. That's going to be the end of his turn. He already did his attack, so we're done there. Then let's do Mr. Dwarf King over here, who hits on a 5. He does not. The Thrall here hits on a 1, and the King saves on a 5. And then the Bondi hits on a 2, and the King saves on a 5. So the King is still up and fighting. We've got a one-on-one combat here in the middle, which is 2 and a 5. So the Dwarf hits, the Orc does not. Orc has to make a save, and he only saves on a 2, so that's another wounded Orc right there. And then we have this combat over here. We're going to do all the attacks. The 2 white dice are for the Berserker, who hits twice, so that's a total of 3 hits. And that dwarf is going to blow his last wound. But he does get to make an attack against this guy, and he hits, and that guy fails his save, so he also goes down. And that's the end of this combat. So if we pull off everybody that's dead, it's going to look like this. He spins, and he can do whatever. So we got to do initiative. There's no morale now. We'll roll for initiative. And the orcs have it. And we're going to move to here. So we've got a king and a berserker. We're going to help our leader. And we can do our melees. Let's start with our leader on a thrall. Orange on a 5. Green on a 1. So the green has to make a save and does not. So our king finally manages to score a king. Man, you get him alone and he's pretty deadly. We got a simple fight here. Orange hits on a 3, green on a 2, so green has to make a save and fails. And then we've got a fight down here where we've got the orange die is a 2. It needs a 1 rather. They need a 2, so nothing happens here. And then we've got a berserker and a leader against a dwarf. So let's see if the berserker can do anything against him. He does 1 hit. The dwarf doesn't hit this turn. Doesn't make his save, so he's going to go bye-bye too. Oh, you know what? That's a champion. He's actually got 2 wounds. And he actually hits on 4, so I might have been doing that wrong. But he's still... Oh, he hits on a 3s on this case. But he still has to fight the king here, gets an attack. The king misses, so that's it for that. But he's still kicking. Removing casualties, we see that this guy goes bye-bye and this guy goes bye-bye. The game is missing a, hey, at 3/4. Well, maybe I should actually read the rules real quick. Hey, they came out yesterday. Cut me a little slack. Would you should have played with like a turn limit or something? Oh, that dwarf is still alive. So what are we down to? We're down to 2 Jarls duking it out. We're down to a champion and we're basically down to a couple of duels that look like this. We've got a champion with 1 wound going up against a berserker. The 2 Jarls are fighting, and then we've got an archer. So this is going to be I think the dwarves are going to win, but we're going to call it a narrow victory by the dwarves. They have a little more fighting power, a little more kick to them, but it's getting late, and I'm running out of time. I'm running out of memory on my phone, so we're going to call it here. The important thing is that you've seen how this game works, and you've seen how even a bare bones skirmish game with just a handful of stats. Look, this is my cheat sheet, by the way. I just hand wrote out what the various herdmen and bondi and archers and thralls, all their abilities. Here's my points. It's 303 points for Team Good, and for Team Greenskin, it was 20 figures, 303 points. How about that? Oh, I said goblins, but it's actually lizard guys. So now you've seen how the game plays, and you can see how easy it is, but if you're going to be playing this game with like 60 to 80 miniatures, I can really see it getting bogged down. I think you're probably going to need to streamline some of these shield wall on shield wall fights where you just say, look, don't mix units. That overly complicates things. You may want to say, look, you know what, I've got 9 guys on my side and you've got 5 guys on your side. Let's just agree, I'm going to roll 9 dice for my attacks, you're going to roll 5 dice for your attacks, and we'll figure out how many saves we have to have, and then the defender pulls off wounded figures. It will speed up play considerably not to have to be in a situation where you've got, particularly if you've got like 12 on 12, where you're like, okay, this guy has 2 over here. It also helps if you don't let yourself get hit up the tailpipe, if you got a whole bunch of shield wall on one side and guys hitting on the other. I'm pretty sure I didn't do this exactly right. I'm surprised at how well the dwarfs did, but again, this is still a fair fight where the ending hangs in some doubt. I think one other thing I'm going to interject here just before we get to the punchline. I think the game benefits from a hard and fast scenario where you've got a specific objective that you're looking for. Get the mostest to the highest, the fastest, that kind of thing, where you've got a solid objective. Because this kind of fight to the death, without a final break point where everything goes completely to heck, it just becomes this kind of slog where you're down to 2 guys that are rolling, okay, 1s and 6s, 1s and 6s. So definitely go with the objectives if you can. I had a bit of an objective here with the Black Rock. One of the reasons I didn't do that is because I wasn't sure how the points work out and how those intersect with the actual objectives. Can be a little tricky. I think this is fine for a first brush. With that out of the way, let's get to the tag. So we're going to end it there. I hope you enjoyed this playthrough of Ravenfeast, and I'll look for you on the next video, all right? Until then, remember, I'm praying for you.